If you're noticing that you don't feel much anymore, if joy feels muted and sadness feels distant, your system has likely entered a state of protective shutdown. This lack of feeling occurs when the nervous system becomes overwhelmed. It happens when the body decides it can no longer safely process the current level of input. Throughout this series, we have looked at the biological mechanisms behind the labels we use against ourselves. We've identified burnout in place of laziness, overstimulation in place of weakness, and the nervous system's role in avoidance, procrastination, perfectionism, and people-pleasing. Today we are addressing something heavier, emotional numbness, because when you stop feeling deeply, you might assume you've become cold or broken. In reality, the reduction of feeling is a specific response to a specific type of pressure. Numbness is the active down-regulation of emotion. When emotional intensity exceeds what your nervous system can safely hold, it lowers the volume. This reduces intensity and limits vulnerability. The underlying emotions are still there, but they are dampened to protect the system from the load. This dampening allows your system to continue operating while internal pressure remains at a peak. We see this in several specific patterns. First, achievements or good news might feel neutral. The things you once looked forward to simply pass by without landing. This is anhedonia, a reduced ability to feel pleasure. It stems from chronic stress and prolonged nervous system activation. Excitement is metabolically expensive. When stress stays high for too long, your brain recognizes that it cannot afford that energy cost. To survive, it blunts reward processing. This often follows the untreated burnout and overstimulation discussed in previous episodes. Numbness is the state that remains after the initial fire burns out. The second sign is a cognitive gap. You understand a situation is sad or significant, but your body doesn't produce the expected emotional response. Recognizing this gap often creates its own layer of frustration and guilt. This usually tracks back to years of minimizing your feelings to function, to stay professional, to stay strong, or to keep from being perceived as too much. Your brain eventually learned that strong signals were too costly to send, so it stopped sending them. Sign 3 involves your interactions with others. You may be physically present, but others perceive you as distant or overly careful. You are in the room, but you feel like there is a layer of glass between you and your life. This is a low-level, sustained freeze state. It limits vulnerability because your system has learned that openness can lead to pain or chaos. When this protection becomes a habit, connection feels muted even when you are in a safe environment. Sign 4 is the ability to meet your responsibilities while feeling internally absent. Clinically, this is emotional detachment. You are going through the motions of work and conversation without actually inhabiting the moment. Because this state allows you to remain productive, it is easy to ignore until the internal cost becomes too high. Sign 5 is the exhaustion that accompanies emotional conversations. Emotional processing requires real cognitive and physiological resources. If your system is already depleted by perfectionistic pressure or chronic avoidance, deeper emotional engagement feels like an impossible demand. To save energy, you might intellectualize or redirect the conversation. This is a form of conservation. Your system is signaling that it cannot safely hold more intensity right now. Finally, sign 6, the self-judgment loop. Labeling yourself as cold or unfeeling keeps you trapped in the shutdown. When you notice the numbness and apply a negative label, you generate shame. Shame increases your stress levels, which tells your nervous system to stay in its protective state. These protective mechanisms only dissolve in the presence of safety. They do not respond to pressure. If you feel absent from your own life, your system is likely using its only available tool to manage overwhelming intensity. Reconnection requires establishing safety rather than forcing intensity. Step 1 is to reduce the load. Lower the external pressure and the internal criticism. The nervous system reopens only when the perceived threat drops. Step 2 involves tiny emotional exposures. Listen to a song that moves you slightly or share a single sentence about your day. These small moments help rebuild your tolerance for feeling. Step 3 is to name quiet sensations. Instead of focusing on a lack of big emotions, notice when you feel tired, tense, or slightly relieved. Step 4. Stop forcing breakthroughs. Demanding that you cry or revisiting painful memories often signals a threat to the body, which deepens the freeze response. Reconnection happens through consistency. Much like trust, the ability to feel returns through repeated experiences of safety. Throughout Misdiagnosed Traits, we've reframed burnout, overstimulation, avoidance, procrastination, perfectionism, and people-pleasing by looking at the nervous system's role in each. In this context, emotional numbness is a state of protective shutdown. Your system adapted to manage an environment that felt impossible to process. While you're not broken, you also do not have to stay in survival mode. The next time you wonder why you don't feel anything, pause. Ask what your system might be protecting you from. Understanding the reason for the shutdown is the first step toward connection. If this series is giving you the language you need, subscribe. Next time, we'll explore why overthinking is not intelligence. It is anxiety trying to create certainty. Don't miss it.